teachers of Reddit, what is the worst parent conference you've ever had? An unintended one. When an undergrad I was teaching requested a formal meeting with me, her mother, and the dean of the college at the university. She had received a 97% on an essay, and she and her mother were both in tears demanding that I be reprimanded and retrained for unfair grading policies. I think my mouth was agape the entire time. Not quite a parent-teacher conference, but it was after I got my first self-flip phone long ago when they were just coming out. An 8th grader stole it. My wife called the phone and the guy who answered was dumb enough to give her his name. It was a parent who was using it. The kid confesses to taking it and the parents came in. Admin confronted the parents about it, explaining that we just wanted the phone back. The parents tore into the kid for confessing he took the phone and told him his birthday was cancelled for ratting on them. From my wife, teacher of 5+ years, 2nd grade parent had earbuds in her ears the entire time, and looked at her phone the entire time. When my wife complimented her daughter and told her that she was doing well, the parent laughed and said she's a brat. I had a student fail my class and I thought that I'd been emailing with their parents throughout the semester. Turns out the parents did not speak English and relied upon their children to translate for them. Their older sibling was studying abroad, so the student was able to hide everything from the parents. Once they came home, the jig was up. The parents could not believe their child had lied for months, so we had a face-to-face meeting. It was so awful to see their faces crumble in shame and humiliation as their oldest child translated the meeting. Former teacher. First parent-teacher conference. I put a lot of time into preparing this evening as an innocent 22-year-old. I gave a 10-minute speech to about 15 family members. They didn't seem to care at all. Then I met with each individually, and they were combative. Some stunk of alcohol. One straight up yelled at me for my grading system. It was basically the beginning of the end of my interest in teaching. I had to inform them that it wasn't in fact a parent/teacher conference. Student asked to meet to discuss his recent exam grade. Cool. He shows up basically being dragged in by his mom, who proceeds to rant at me for a solid 5 minutes about how unfair the test must be because her special little guy, her words, couldn't possibly deserve a C. He was a junior in college and I was his TA. When she finally let me speak, I informed her that I didn't meet with parents and it was actually against regulations for me to discuss his grades with her, and asked her to leave. She hit the roof, started screaming and tearing up his exam, and was eventually escorted out by campus security. I was talking to the parent of a kindergarten student and telling her ways she could help her child at home. She suddenly said, "Do you get paid to do this?" I said, yeah. She said, "Well, I don't." Then swiped all the papers off the table, stood up and walked out. I was like, okay then. Most parents are awesome and I enjoy visiting with them. A very small minority will try and verbally abuse you or bully you. Kids will twist words and incidents so they don't get into trouble. Some parents can't believe their angels can do anything wrong. I don't know why they believe that. I've ducked up as a kid and a young adult. My kid is no angel. That's not to say that teachers don't screw up and twist things either. I had to tell a well-known gang leader that his son was failing my class. Actually went better than expected, but the anticipation was a bitch. I mean, it wasn't exactly a bad conference, but one time the mother of a 6-year-old 2nd grader was pushing for her son to skip 2nd grade and go to 3rd grade. I tried pointing out that even though his reading and math skills were excellent, advancing him further would create a gap in his knowledge about science and social studies. Not to mention the fact that he is very immature and socially sticks out. She kept on insisting that age was just a number. Finally, I turned to both the mother and father and asked, when he is a 15-year-old senior in high school, what 18-year-old woman is going to want to go to prom with him? Then Dad was like, "Hol up. Once had a phone conference with a parent who accused me of forcing students to come to my house and build a garage for me. The parent said his son was being ostracized and punished by me for refusing to come to my house and work on my garage. The only thing I could do was laugh at him. I thought it was a prank and hung up on him. Next morning, I had to meet with my principal because the parent had called and threatened to call the local news media about my classroom if I wasn't immediately fired. The parent left screaming rant on my principal's voicemail. We listened to it a few times and got some good laughs. The parent claimed I was making the kids drive to my house during class, and if they didn't I was failing them. But, his son had an A in the class and the drive to my house was longer than the class period. The parent was obviously nuts, but it had to be treated as credible. So, there was an investigation and there may even be a report about it in my personnel file. I've had other weird interactions with parents, but that one definitely takes the cake. Wife just told me another one. The last conference of the day, the parent, a guy, started the meeting with saying, "Do you feel that? Do you feel nervous?" Implying a connection and nervously laughing. My wife felt super uncomfortable because he seemed to be coming onto her, and sharing personal details about his life. No matter what she said, "Okay, have a nice night," he'd just start another conversation and keep trying to talk. She eventually had to just grab her stuff and basically leave for the day to get him to leave. I had a parent-teacher conference where I basically got called a racist. The father was like, "Can't you see my son is not like other kids, give him the benefit of the doubt," heavily indicating his race. This was after his son cheated on a test. The best part was the father was a vice principal at another school, but his son went to our expensive private school because he didn't want him in the public school he worked at. The kid eventually confessed. And to be 100% transparent, my school is incredibly diverse. He was far from the only kid there who was his race. Admin wasn't super supportive. They ended up fudging his grade to please the parents after I gave him the 0. They wanted me to do it but I refused. I told admin they can do whatever they want with the grade book, but I'm not touching it. I'm a school psychologist, not a teacher. But we still have lots of parent conferences. Worst one, spent a good half an hour explaining that I was diagnosing her son with autism and why. Everyone agrees, including the parent, and we move into developing his IEP. 20 minutes into this we're talking about his behavior plan and she asks me, "I'm wondering, do you think he might have autism?" One time a child peed all over the bathroom in the school. When we brought it up with the parent, they demanded to know why we didn't teach them how to properly use the bathroom. I have 3 that stick out. 1. Student was a repeat freshman, constantly dirty and full of hickeys. Tried to get high off of his inhaler, definitely doing drugs and high as a kite most of the time. He was failing everything for the 2nd time. The school called a meeting with mom. Mom comes in covered in dirty hoe clothes, hickeys, and meth teeth. She couldn't understand why she was called in. 2. Parent-teacher conferences. Student brings her mom into the room and points out the 40 random scholarships I have listed on the wall: duct tape dresses for prom, left-handed scholarships, race-based scholarships, all sorts of stuff. The mom looks at the wall for 2 seconds, turns to her daughter, and says, "You will never get any of these. You're too stupid." 3. Open house. Parents come in to visit each class briefly. Mom randomly stands up, points to her kid and says, "This one here? She's trouble. She don't listen. She's always got gum in her mouth. So help me God, if you see her with gum, you make her stand in the corner with the gum on her nose all class. You call me if she steps out of line, I'll slap her back in. Okay." The one where a parent told me it was unreasonable to expect my sophomore US history students to write a 5-paragraph essay. She claimed she had expertise as she used to be an English teacher. Honestly, though, I've been very lucky in my career to have never had a seriously bad parent-teacher conference. parent had their period all over the student chair, right through her pajama pants. From the same parents' evening. 1. Parents of a student with a name fancy enough they might as well have been called Lord and Lady Ashcroft. They greet me with "It's a pleasure to meet you. You aren't a cunt like all the other teachers" in very proper English. Was gobsmacked. Spoke to a colleague later who said, "Did you speak to X's parents?" They just sat down, called me a cunt and left. 2. I had a student who was great at the work, but swore to an extent that would make a trooper blush. "Hey, how are you doing today?" For instance, would come out as ducking high. Ducking how the duck are you ducking doing you ducking gobshite? Suffice to say, I brought this up with his mother, who turned to him and said, "You ducking what?" "Ducking hell, we ducking talked about this you wanker." I stopped policing his language after that. There wasn't any ducking point. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos.